We are back. The African Service Committee is a comprehensive human rights agency admitted to aid migrants, I should say immigrants, refugees, and asylees from the African diaspora. Now, they serve over 8,000 individuals annually in New York City by providing essential services such as healthcare, housing, legal support, social welfare, education, nutrition, as well as advocacy. And joining me now is the executive director of the African Services Committee, Amanda Lugg. And Amanda, thank you for being with us.
Hi, Darren. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you
It's a
so
pleasure.
much.
I should probably just say thanks for your introduction. But yeah, it's 8,000 folks in a normal year. And I think the last normal year was 2019, what with
Wow.
COVID and now the humanitarian crisis. So yeah, our numbers have grown exponentially. But yeah, we can talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, as we talk about the numbers, well, I want to talk a little bit about some of the services that are provided because obviously, as we're coming out of COVID, the need for services continues to
Yeah.
increase. And so, for somebody who may not be familiar with the services that you provide, why don't you share with us?
Sure. Well, during COVID, we never closed our doors. We continued working through our case management counseling programs, online, over the phone, meeting folks in public spaces, even. Um, and doing delivery food pantries by car around to people who were either in complete lockdown or couldn't leave their homes for whatever reason. COVID, like for the rest of the world, shifted a great deal, mainly for us in the area of mental health, mental and behavioral health, which really up until then still had some stigma attached to it. But I think, again, globally, it's kind of blown the lid off mental health. Mental health's gone mainstream, so to say. And now the need is overwhelming, particularly for our newest New Yorkers who are arriving with intense both physical and mental trauma. Majority of whom we're seeing now coming through our doors, who have arrived through the Darien Gap, through the southern border. The programs that we have available to folks who walk in the door, all free of charge, of course. We have an HIV, STI testing and hepatitis B testing center. We have assistance with supportive housing. We have a legal department, as you could imagine, a great deal of immigration activity there, as well as English language classes. The huge majority of the folks we serve are from West Africa, Francophone Africa. So the common language in the office is French. So our English classes are French to English. And should probably add that we have about 45 staff now. 70% of us are African born. And so we have, I believe now it's up to about 15 different languages and dialects spoken, which of course makes us which we have been for a number of years now, the go-to place for African immigrants, both for cultural and linguistically competent services.
Amanda, when we talk about the migrants, the immigrants that are coming right now, I think a lot of, there's been a lot of stereotyping that's going on. And for someone who's been working with boots on the ground and getting to see them front and center, talk to me about what you're seeing by way of their needs, because they're coming over and they do have needs, but what are some of those specific needs that we're seeing, particularly in our migrant community?
Sure. I think first and foremost is everyone wants asylum, right? That's the ticket. The thing is, as grand as those ideas may sound, you actually need to file your asylum application to then get your work permit, which you receive 180 days after filing your asylum. But we have such a backlog that in itself is weeks, I don't know, months away. The other top needs are the New York City ID, food. We have a food pantry and English language classes, as well as medical insurance, which is really tough, of course, for for these folks coming in with no papers whatsoever. So we have a particular program where we have partnerships with a couple of the large city hospitals where we're able to take folks, provide that translation, and get them primary care on a sliding scale for their medical needs. The big difference that we're seeing, of course, is the numbers, but the actual demographics have shifted somewhat. We're seeing people now en masse from countries that we haven't seen these numbers coming from. We're seeing increasing numbers from Mauritania, from Burkina Faso, from Guinea, and of course from Senegal. But what's interesting is that this group of arrivals, the majority do not speak French. They speak their ethnic languages. And so we're seeing, it's increasing the need even more just for your basic translation needs.
Let me jump in on that one. I want to ask a question because when you do have people who are coming, and I know, from my experience of traveling to Africa, the diversity of languages that are spoken in Africa, and they come over to the United States, and you're thinking that you're just going to focus on the basic 2 or 3, but the reality is there's a whole lot more linguistically that is called for on the parts of those people who are doing translation here.
Right.
How are you able to navigate that?
Ask me today, I'll give you one answer. Ask me tomorrow, I'll give you another. But yeah, what we've some money is coming through from the city. I have to be fair. We've just got a small 6-month grant that was to address the mental health issues of these new migrants. So what we've done is every other Wednesday evening, we have, it's like an open house, drop-in group, whatever you like, from 4:30 to 8:30. And from 4:30 to 5, the office is still open so they can access particular services or appointments that they need. And then the rest of the time is spent in a great space that we have with a full kitchen. We provide a hot meal. They can have Wi-Fi, community, and we're providing workshops on like how to survive, in New York City. And that literally just started at the beginning of this month. We've done a funding drive. People are coming in with in this snow, Daren, with a sweatshirt on. So we've done a small funding drive, and as that money's coming in, people donate $20, $10, $50. We just every week we're going back onto Amazon, buying coats, hats, gloves and scarves, and then distributing them. And then we've run out by the end of the week. Then it starts again. So yeah, it's all services that we've provided in the past, but the big difference today is the scale of need.
What about educational needs? Because obviously that's also
Good point.
of importance, right? We talk about putting
Yeah.
clothes on somebody's back, but then after you get to trying to get a job or to be able to navigate society that you're not familiar with, education is going to be a huge barrier. So how you dealing with the education barrier?
Completely. Yeah, I mean, we have probably hundreds of cab drivers around New York City who are qualified doctors, engineers, and the like. So yeah, language and education is critical. But the first point of entry for the community that we're seeing now is literally English language classes. And from there to GED, or to be able to transfer their educational qualifications to the American one. But that takes money, and honestly, people's immediate needs right now, that's what's taking precedence. I need somewhere to sleep tonight. I need a warm meal. I need a coat. And yes, of course, the work is there. I mean, it is a need, but I think right now it would be more someone can get a couple of shifts at the local deli, as opposed to thinking that you're going to be able to, begin where you might have left off at home. That said, though, what's very interesting that Brian Lehrer did a brilliant show on January the 19th, if folks want to listen to it, about the African migrant crisis, and something that connecting the dots, which is interesting. The educational level of folks that we're seeing coming in recently is below the average. And the connections being made are that the increased restrictions from the European Union on migrants crossing the Mediterranean and from my country into England, there's been such a tightening on controls, and trying to get it more tighter in England. They're talking about sending people who come over on the boats to Rwanda, but that's for another conversation. Because of these restrictions of entry, making it more difficult to get into Europe, people are seeing more migrants taking the Atlantic way, although it's a lot harder, a lot longer, but there's a much better chance of them being able to get into the country they're trying to get into. And what because this lack of language that I mentioned, how many people actually don't, 3/4 of the people that we're seeing now do not speak French. And apparently I've been told that if folks haven't been to Hello?
I'm here,
Sorry,
Amanda. I'm
I
sorry. I think we
lost.
had we had
Okay,
we had a little technical
we're good.
difficulty, but keep going.
Okay.
The last part I heard was
So,
if folks haven't been to
yeah, if folks haven't been to high school
right.
in their country, in Francophone Africa, they will not necessarily speak French.
Okay.
So you could surmise from that the groups that we're seeing coming in right now do not have the educational background perhaps of earlier waves of migration.
Yeah. You spoke earlier about your country, and it doesn't sound like you have a Bronx accent. Where are you from, girl?
Well, I watch a lot of PBS, Daren. I watch a lot of PBS.
Okay.
No, I'm originally from England. My heritage is English and Ugandan, but I was born in England and have been in New York since '93.
Awesome, awesome. We love having you, and you're doing great
Thank
representation, and
you.
you're doing a great work. We talked
Thank
about something
you.
earlier, and I want you to just take the time to talk a little bit more about this, because there is this huge mental and emotional gap that I think that
Mm,
immigrants and migrants have to contend with when you come over. And you kind of hit on it. It's that you don't get the opportunity just to pick up where you left off at home, where sometimes
right.
you could really be flourishing at home, but then you come
Exactly.
here and have to start all over again. Talk to me about how much you've had to
Exactly.
counsel people emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, if you had to really
Yeah.
let people know,
Mm,
like, listen, I know where you came from, but
mm,
unfortunately, new territory, and we got to start from
yeah.
scratch.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And I think it just underscores the when we're talking about stigma around immigrants, right? That just underscores the desperation and need that they must have had to have left their
Right.
country as a doctor, as an engineer, as just someone with a regular job, to be honest. Um, and so the counseling really begins. We have mental health counseling, of course, but that the counseling begins dealing with the trauma that has fueled their migration. Everyone's coming with mental trauma and many with physical trauma. We have a large LGBTQ group as well. And as you can imagine, that trauma is intense. And to be honest, the city has recognized this, DOH, there is a dearth of qualified French speaking mental health counselors. a complete dearth. So much, in fact, that the Governor Hochul, actually last year, in her budget allocated, I believe it was 40 million or 4 million, probably 40 million, towards the educational system to encourage enrollment of more minorities into these degree programs that would support work in behavioral health. So because of that lack as well of post-traumatic growth qualified counselors, we've pivoted with this, again, with these numbers, we've pivoted into that counseling, that non-language mental health counseling, a lot of art therapy, excursions into New York, walks in the park, where you can elicit uh, the same conversations, but in a very different and more culturally appropriate way. That just the you spoke about, when folks first come in. I mean, we're dealing with the very basics of, like, no, when you speak to someone, you must look at them in the eye. Whereas for many back home, that's a sign of disrespect to look at someone directly in the eye if they're your elder. And so to explain, no, here in America, if you don't look at someone in the eye, then you're not trustworthy, perhaps. Right.
Right.
So just those tiny little things. Yeah. And the workshops that I mentioned, those kind of things are topics in the workshops.
You know,
Yeah, it's huge, Daren. It's really huge.
No, I feel you there, Amanda. I know that a lot has been said about talking about immigration, particularly when we talk about what's going on in Europe, the EU, the whole situation with, we're talking about passports, the whole 9 yards, people trying to come over and really just be legal and end up here. What's it like for you on your end with immigration services? I know that you're up,
Yeah.
I know that you're up, up, up the creek, if you will, with a
Yeah.
lot of
And that, yeah.
immigration applications.
Mm. Yeah, that's the thing. We New York State dispersed a couple of million. Don't quote me on that. But for legal services, specifically under the Welcome NYC, specifically for the new arrivals, and we received that a huge chunk of that for our legal asylum clinic, which we began again. We've had to pause it as of 2 weeks ago. The stack of folks that need to be interviewed already. So that it's a capacity issue, both with our legal team, but again, I go back to the language, the translation. And what's so weird? That's been like our forte, right? We're well known in the community, in the city, and anyone who has an African client or who needs information, we're the go-to organization. However, now we're saying, yes, we actually have those languages covered, but we don't have enough people and in the positions that need to be filled for that translation.
Yeah. And so, as we only have a few minutes left, but I do want to get a chance to really get a moment. You got to come back now that we done talked, and we it's like we didn't have the family reunion. We just started talking. Now they got to keep going, but we can't keep going. So you got to come back. But I want to talk about, before we go, maybe some things that the public needs to be paying attention to by way of policy that you're advocating for, that possibly that they can back you and support some of the stuff that you see out there.
Well, I know one of the things that both the city and the state have been pushing for is an expedited work permit process, which would, I believe, take away the need for folks to apply for their asylum and then wait that 180 days. I mean, that 180 days is an extremely vulnerable place to be. You're liable for work exploitation, sexual exploitation, all kinds of things because you have no legal standing to work or to kind of be in the country. So, well, no, I take that back, not to be in the country, but to work. And so to expedite the work permits, which may sound to some like, what, people just come in and you're letting them work? No, what it will do is, I think we know that these people are coming in for good reason. I'd say 99.9%, right? But it would allow them to begin working, perhaps leave the shelters, which are so overburdened. All of these social services that we're talking about, it would it would dilute it would what's the word I'm looking for, Darren? It would
Help
bring
alleviate.
down those numbers
Yes, yes.
a,
Okay, alleviate, bring
a
down.
little,
Right.
right?
Uh
Yeah,
huh.
self-sufficiency. That's all people want to do, is to work and have somewhere to live. And you know why they want to work? Because they need to send money home
Yeah.
from the people, many of whom, the like villages, get together and pool the money to send the one young man off to America. And then he will send, if it's $20 a week, Darren, this pays for someone's schooling for a semester. In
Right.
Africa, yeah, as I'm sure you know, in education you have to pay for from the beginning.
Right.
So yeah, no one is coming. Yeah, yeah. I don't know if I need to speak to the choir anymore,
No, no, no.
but
But
yeah,
no.
no
Listen.
one's coming for a free ride. Nobody is coming for a free ride.
Totally understand. And I wanted to get into it. You tapped on it just a second ago. Talk to me about this wage discrimination. How prevalent is that in the African community, given the fact you may not have somebody that has those papers for 180 days? How big is
Right.
wage discrimination?
Who knows? Who knows? But I do know examples of, folks that we speak to, clients of ours, they're being paid $2 an hour, $3 an hour, working in a deli. Just and they're for some it may be more money than they've seen, but to survive in New York, as we know, it's nothing. But
Absolutely.
what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
No, it's a lot to contend with, and it's a lot to really deal
Mm,
with. But for somebody who's coming over, they feel like this is good. But the reality is, when you put it all out there and you find out what the cost of living is, and you've got people who, there's a reason why minimum wage is $15, $16 an hour. It's not because people are being generous. It's because that's exactly
exactly.
what is needed in order to survive, and more is needed to
Right.
survive in New York. For people who want to get in touch and support your work and the endeavors, what do they do?
Thank you. Yeah, if you'd like to help us, perhaps donate a couple bucks online so we can buy more coats next week. The website is www.africanservices, all one word, africanservices.org. And we have the Facebook, Twitter, and that, but we do have a donate button on the website. And if you just put it for winter clothes driving, that would be very much appreciated. Not just by me, but the thousands yet to walk in the door.
Yeah, and
Thank you.
where exactly are you located for people who are trying to find you?
We're sure we're on 127th West Harlem. We're on 127th between Morningside and Amsterdam.
There you go. There you go. Well, Amanda, you may see me sometime soon, so I'll let you know. I grew up right down.
Right.
I grew up right down the block, 237 West 127th Street, apartment 3A in Harlem, New York. So I know exactly where you are. I went to the St. Joseph
All
School
right.
right down the block from you. So
Yeah, yeah,
yes.
still there.
So
Still
and it
there.
is still there. I know, I know.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the work that you do. And I'm telling my
Thank
producer
you.
with you on the air right now, we're going to bring you back. So look for a call. We'll
Okay.
be calling you back soon.
Thank you very much, Darren. All the best. And
All
Happy
right.
New Year.
Happy New Year to you. All right.